Hello, everyone. Welcome into my office here at Bethany. Blessed to have you with me today. As we get ready for worship this week, we are in the second Sunday after Pentecost, and we are looking at the people that Jesus tends to accompany. Um, we see Jesus reach out to a tax collector and invite him to have dinner together, and then several other tax collectors and sinners show up to this dinner. And it's Jesus, his disciples, and all these people who are considered to be sinful within the society there. And the Pharisees jump all over this, asking the disciples, how could your teacher eat with these people? And then, of course, as the story goes on, Jesus is approached by a temple leader who says his daughter has died, and he's asking Jesus to come heal her, raise her back to life. Jesus, on the way, gets touched by a woman who's been having hemorrhages for years. She is immediately healed. You get that famous moment where Jesus turns to her and says, your faith has healed you. And then, of course, he goes and raises the leader's daughter from the dead. And we see several things happening here. One is Jesus' ability to heal. That's always important. We focus on that a lot as Christians, Jesus' ability to heal us in different ways, and not necessarily the way that, the old television things that we used to see where somebody would put their hand on somebody's forehead and all of a sudden, boom, they're healed. Not that. Jesus heals us in a lot of ways, spiritually, emotionally. He gives us hope. He empowers us. He grants us peace of mind. And yes, in the Bible and in various moments in the world, Jesus performs miracles. But the healing that we seek, the healing that perhaps we need the most, is that healing that involves our own peace of heart, peace of mind, peace of soul, hope in the world around us. That's what Jesus brings into our lives today, is hope, peace, and empowerment. And the empowerment part is what sticks out the most in the rest of this gospel. Go back to the beginning. Jesus approaching this tax collector whose name is Matthew, and the interaction that they have, and end up having dinner together. And Jesus is sitting there eating with all these tax collectors and sinners, people that are hated within society. And I should point out the tax collectors in that day were considered to be sinful because they often skimmed money off of what people gave for their taxes. So a lot of them were sinful in their own way too. It was just part of who they were and what they did. It was how they made money. And at the same time, then other sinners that are not identified are there with them as well. And Jesus chooses to accompany them. He could have chosen the righteous and hung out with the righteous, but instead he chooses to be with the sinners. Well, first of all, that idea of being with the righteous, there's no such thing as the righteous within the human race. We're all sinful. So that idea, let that one go. The Pharisees needed to learn that. They needed to learn that they were sinful too. They needed to be reminded to be humble and to show humility and to accept their own shortcomings and not raise themselves up above everybody else. So there was that. There's also the part where Jesus says, I'm here for the people that need me the most. I'm here to forgive sin and to heal the world from its addiction to sin. And so he's hanging out with the sinners. Jesus appears to us most in those who we marginalize within our society. We have to remember that. Jesus was born in a stable amongst the animals, not in a castle, not in a palace, not in a temple. He was born amongst the creatures of the world. And his first visitors were lowly shepherds, and his parents were poor. You got to remember, Jesus from day one is all about the poor, the sick, the sinner, the lowly in society. That's his focus. That's where he goes all the time. His ministry is there. It's why we talk so much in church about accepting all people. We're not here to judge. Jesus didn't judge. He literally hung out with anyone and everyone, from the Samaritan woman at the well to the prostitute when he challenged the religious leaders. Whichever one of you is without sin, cast the first stone. Of course, they all had to walk away. John the Baptist was out in the wilderness with the common everyday people, with the marginalized in society, not with the leaders, always the marginalized. We would do well as a church to welcome everyone, no matter who they are, because Jesus always chose to appear through the marginalized people of society, chose to work through the marginalized people in society. The other thing I should point out about this weekend, we'll talk more about that. The other thing about this weekend, we as a church remember the Emmanuel 9. Those are the people in Charleston who were killed by Dylan Roof. We remember them. This is the anniversary. We remember them because the shooter in that case was one of our own ELCA children, son of an ELCA church. So while we remember those who are marginalized, those who experience prejudice and racism and sexism and experience prejudice because of their sexuality, while we remember always those people and raise them up in our prayers, we especially this week remember those who experienced racism and hatred from one of our own in the ELCA. So we will also pray for the Emmanuel 9 this week. I look forward to seeing you this weekend. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Thanks be to God. Amen.